Welcome to Camelot, the Kingdom of Darkness, my Minecraft survival let's play, and the medieval build guide. So today we're going to be building a ruined church. Why? Because it'll be fun and interesting. But before that, be sure to subscribe to the channel because it helps out tremendously. Also, it's free 99, so why not? So I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm playing with just normal Minecraft textures for the first time in a long while. And that's because people kept asking me what my textures were. And it's kind of hard to explain because it was like 10 different. I could actually show you right here. So if you go to resource packs, so my texture pack was all of these textures right here combined into one. So it was like Germsy and Jiculus and John Smith, all these combined into one, and it kind of made it chaotic. So what I'm going to do is just make my own texture pack from scratch. So just using the normal Minecraft textures and then slowly build it over time. So I don't like the leaves though. The leaves and the wheat, there's just a lot of things that need to be changed. Also the workbench, I'm not used to like the normal workbench. Anyways, so I have materials and the area for this church picked out, and it's mainly going to be dark oak and some spruce. So churches, from what I understand, back in the medieval ages, were mostly built like this with a lot of stone and stone bricks. So that church over there is somewhat accurate. However, what the churches were built out of back in the medieval ages were mostly based on region. And since in this region they already have a nice big church over there that we can just say a lot of the people from this little farmland area started to congregate over there because that's where the main city was being built. The church over here, or the ruined church, can just be made out of wood because in the more poor areas they just had to use what they had on hand. They didn't have a bunch of people that they could just use to move around a bunch of bricks and stone and make a giant church, and they didn't really need one anyways. So the way I would typically set up structures, especially ones that are gonna be like, actually I need to make a crafting table real quick, even though I have a million of them, but you can never have too many crafting tables, am I right? So the way I would usually set up structures, especially ones that are going to be like this, so I would have an inset wall like that. So this would be there, and let's say there. This is a very small structure, but it's just an example. So something that would be like that. Usually I would just set up all of these outside bits. So it would be one here, and then go down 3, one here. Really, you could do any number for this, but 3 usually leaves you with a nice middle number that you can put, like, let's say a nice window right here. So now that you know how to set up the basic structure, because it's not really that hard to kind of do this once you know what you're doing, I'm going to finish setting up just a base for this. Okay, so this is the basic structure of this little church set up. And how I set it up is usually this skinnier, narrow section is for the pews, and then usually in churches you'd see something over here on like these sides for candles and stuff like that. And then this is where the altar type area, where I forget what they call him for some reason, the guy that preaches the church thing, I forget what they call him. I haven't been to church in a very, very long time. So when you're building these ruined structures, you can go one of two ways. You can essentially just start from here if you want to, and kind of just build up as you need, leaving some of the ruined areas. How I do it sometimes, if the build is small enough, like this is a tiny build and it shouldn't take very long, is I will build the entire thing, then ruin it after. It makes it just a little bit easier to figure out what you want to do. So the roofs for this area I will do off camera or on a time lapse because in the last video I explained how to do this roof, and the video before that roof, and these here are going to be very similar to that, so I'll do that on a time lapse. This roof here I will come in with you guys and do because it's going to be a little bit different, maybe more pointed, or maybe I'll do something like that. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm thinking the more pointed look could be fun. Alright, so this roof was way more complex than I had initially expected, so I'll probably do a separate little tutorial on how to build something like this. Anyways, so I made a mini spire area over here and a big one over here. So I went and grabbed Blackstone because I thought an interesting idea would be kind of to separate these two roofs, because this is one big one and then two little separate ones. So where it gets more complex is actually having to build a spire, which is typically more of a rounded bottom build that leads to a tip on a square thing like this. Makes it slightly more complex, so I might just close off these areas for now just so we can have something a little bit easier to build with. So for these ends I'll typically do something like this. Now that we have all the four corners laid out, we can kind of just do something like upside down stair, regular stair, and another upside down stair, and just do that all the way around. So now something that's important with pointed roofs is something called a pitch, which is somewhat difficult to get if you don't have any experience with it, but essentially it's, I'll just do a little example here. So if you do a stair, upside down stair, and then a regular stair, you're just going to get a regular diagonal like that, and that's okay if you're just doing a basic roof like that. However, if you want it to be more pointed, you're gonna do a stair, an upside down stair, and then a block, a regular stair, upside down stair, and then a block. And that gives it way more of a curved feel. However, when you're making a pointed roof and you only have this much space to work with, it becomes a little bit more complex. You have to do something like a stair, upside down stair, and then two blocks, stair, upside down stair, and then maybe 3 blocks, stair, upside down stair. Because that will give you a much more drastic curve that still looks pretty decent, especially when you're working within this type of confined space. So I'm going to attempt this for a little bit and come back. So as you can see over here, I only did one section of it, but you can already kind of see it coming together. And the more blocks you put between the stair and the upside down stair, the more drastic the pitch will be. And that is the basic concept for making pointed roofs. So I'm going to do that on this one and then kind of just bring a mini one over here. Okay, so this spire is officially done, and you can actually start see this look more like a church now. Now what I'm going to do is just start giving it more of a messed up look by adding texture variation like this. And it already starts to make it look 10 times better and 10 times more medieval. This is usually something I do on most of my builds, unless I'm doing something like more modern, which is very rare for me. I'm very into the medieval lifestyle. So yeah, I'm going to do more of this texture variation, probably add the windows and some detail to this build. And then we can come in and actually start destroying everything. Now that we built it all up, we can start destroying it. Alright, so there's an Enderman walking around. So this church is pretty much done for the most part. Now I can just start actually tearing stuff down. I also started texturing a bit of the ground over here to kind of match with it over there, because eventually this whole farmland area is going to be this kind of ground. So now basically I can just start chopping away at this thing. But when I chop away at builds like this to make them look more ruined, I kind of try to think of what I'm going to do to actually make it look ruined. Like, I'm going to do a dip right here to kind of make it look like the roof had collapsed in this area, and maybe a little section over here, and have wood and kind of rocks and stuff just spewing on the ground, kind of making it look like it just toppled down over and in here, and obviously inside the church. But I'm not gonna get too interior on this episode. Definitely next episode I'll finish the interior, but I'm just going to start chopping away at this roof. See, the roof is already starting to look more ruined and caved in, but you don't want to leave weird little blocks like that are just like connected by 1 pixel, because it just makes it look very unnatural, and it's not really what you're going for. So I'll break this. And something you can do to fall off your building. So something that adds to the organic feel of a ruined building and is pretty simple to do is just adding some leaves, making it look like it's just grown over the building over time. So something like that. So we can come down here and look at that. I mean, I don't really like these leaves because they're a little too green for this build. Maybe I might have to go grab some birch leaves or something like that. Alright, now you can see that the major difference that just making this little divot here and a little divot in the front made. Especially with the acacia leaves, just make it look like moss is growing in these areas where moisture is getting to because it's not protected from the weather. And just adding some rocks out here, a little like old chopped down tree that died a long while ago, and a couple little you know, just logs spewing about. And the final touch for today anyways, because we're definitely going to do this interior, is we can just put a little campfire here with maybe some logs, and it can look like a couple squatters are just sitting here in this abandoned building, getting away from the shelters. Especially since in medieval villages and medieval cities back in the day, there was a lot of homeless people that just had nowhere to live, and it gives it just that little bit of smoke coming out and gives it that very organic, lively feel. But that's about it for this build. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe. It helps the channel out tremendously, and I will see you guys on the next one. Hopefully. Please come back.